This whole week has been absolutely insane for football. Now, this is not a weekly series or a cheap copy of FTW. I don't want to have my own weekly series. This is just a one-off video where I will be discussing exactly what occurred in football over the past week and what it means for each team. I will go in chronological order starting from Monday and ending with El Clasico on Sunday. If you're going to enjoy this video, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a lot. So on Monday, not a lot of stuff happened except for the fact that Villarreal lost in the round of 32 in the Copa del Rey to 3rd division side Unionistas, who are currently sitting 13th in their group. This wouldn't be the only game Villarreal would lose this week, but we'll get to that later. Clubs lose to smaller teams all the time in cup games, but this one is strange since Villarreal were arguably outplayed by Unionistas. Usually the small team scores a goal and sits back the rest of the game, like we saw in Middlesbrough versus Chelsea, which we will get to soon. Unionistas, however, didn't sit back. Actually, they didn't even score first. They scored a penalty to make it 1-1, but throughout the match they were dominant, taking 12 shots inside Villarreal's box through the 120 minutes before they would win 7-6 on penalties. Unionistas will now go on to face FC Barcelona in the round of 16. Tuesday would see Chelsea be defeated at the hands of Middlesbrough in the first leg of the Carabao Cup semi-finals. Despite Chelsea being the far better team with 72% possession and 18 shots taken compared to Middlesbrough 6, they still weren't able to find the goal once and therefore will go into the second leg 1-0 down. It seems like Chelsea's problems aren't solved at all despite a few decent games here and there. But the main issue for me in this game was that it felt as if Chelsea always tried to play the chances too big. And what I mean by that is that they should try to shoot more from the distance and then hope for a lucky bounce to poke the ball in, as trying to play through the deep block clearly didn't work. The only real threat in this Chelsea team is 21-year-old Cole Palmer, who came from Manchester City in the summer and has been arguably the best young player in the Premier League this season. Wednesday was definitely the most exciting day as we had everything from fights to comebacks to derbies to comebacks in derbies. And quite frankly, I don't know where to start, but let's just stay in England for now. Liverpool played against Fulham in a game where nobody really knew what to expect since Liverpool were either not starting or missing key players such as Salah, Alisson, Robertson, Szoboszlai, Nunez and Gakpo. Speaking about Nunez and Gakpo, they would come on to change the game immensely, and after 1 hour Liverpool were 1-0 down to Fulham until Nunez and Gakpo got subbed on, and Nunez grabbed himself 2 assists and the latter scored the winner to go into the second leg of the Carabao Cup semi-final with a 2-1 lead. I'm gonna be honest, I don't have a lot to say about this game other than Liverpool are the biggest comeback merchants ever, but I was watching another game that was much more exciting, being Atletico Madrid versus Real Madrid in the Supercopa de España. We're going to start off quite sad here since the game was played in Saudi Arabia, and during the 1-minute silence for Franz Beckenbauer, who sadly passed away on January 7th, the Saudi Arabians decided that it would be a good idea to boo for some weird reason. Just take a listen.
La derecha. Recuerdo de un astro extraordinario.
To me, this is extremely unacceptable behavior from the fans, but all I want to say here is rest in peace Franz Beckenbauer, one of the greatest players of all time, and also Daily Dose of Football. He just put out a video about his career and I think it's a great watch, so you should go and check that out after this video. But anyways, let's get into the game now. This was a highly entertaining game with both sides creating big chances, as it only took Atletico Madrid 6 minutes to score the first goal. By the half-hour mark, Real Madrid turned it around to a 2-1 lead, but then Griezmann scored one of the best goals this season to make it 2-2 before halftime. In the majority of the second half, the game was pretty even until Kepa did what he always does and had to make a big mistake which led to an own goal. But 5 minutes before full time, it would be Dani Carvajal to make it 3-3, taking the game into extra time and potentially penalties. But penalties weren't needed, as yet again in the latter stages, 116 minutes to be exact, Real Madrid scored to 4-3 and just 3 minutes later sealed the deal with a 5-3 scoring to secure them a place in the Supercopa de España final. Meanwhile in Italy, there was another derby going on between Lazio and Roma, which saw Lazio win with 3 red cards in the final 5 minutes. Let me take you through them. Okay, so here we've got the first red card for Pedro, number 9, Lazio. He got a second yellow. Genuinely, this late in the game, I don't feel like he should get a second yellow for this. If it's a first yellow, I'm fine with that, but I just don't think that this is enough for a second yellow. Now that the Turkish league has seen a spike in reputation, it's worth pointing out that Fenerbahce beat Konyaspor 7-1 and were 5-0 up at halftime. It's looking likely that they will win the Turkish league, as they are currently 5 points clear of Galatasaray but still have played one more game than them. Thursday, we're gonna head back to Spain, where Barcelona beat Osasuna 2-0 in the other semi-final of Supercopa de España, which means that they would take on Real Madrid in the final on Sunday. One of Barcelona's goal scorers was 16-year-old Lamine Yamal, who scored in the 93rd minute to seal the victory. In Italy, Juventus beat Frosinone 4-0 in the quarterfinals of Coppa Italia, and they will be facing Lazio on April 3rd. Friday, we would see Sevilla continue their struggles from this season and last season, losing 3-2 at home to promoted side Deportivo Alavés in the 90th minute. Sevilla now have only won 3 games since September 29th, and 2 of those games were in the Copa del Rey, where one of them came against Atlético Astorga, an amateur team who plays in the 5th tier of Spanish football and was founded as recent as 2020. Sevilla only won this game 2-0, by the way. The other game they won came against a Segunda team in Racing de Ferrol, where Sevilla scraped a winner in the 87th minute. The only La Liga game they've won since then was against Granada, where they won 3-0, but the game was actually pretty even throughout. Friday would also see the first game in Asia Cup being kicked off between hosts Qatar and Lebanon, where the hosts would win 3-0. Can they make a long run in the tournament and make up for their bad performance at the 2022 World Cup? I certainly think they will make the quarterfinals at the very least. Friday would also be the day where Bayern beat Hoffenheim 3-0 and Jamal Musiala would score 2 goals, Sané would get 2 assists, and of course Harry Kane would end up on the score sheet as well. For Saturday, we will be taking another trip to Spain to talk about Villarreal and their struggles, as they lost 3-0 to promoted Las Palmas, who were tied as the 6th lowest scoring team in La Liga. Villarreal now sit 15th, just 4 points clear of the relegation zone. It's crazy to think that this team not long ago won the Europa League and made the Champions League semi-finals. I think it all went wrong when Unai Emery left for Aston Villa, because it's since then that we've seen a decline in Villarreal's form. Also, key players such as Dani Parejo and Raúl Albiol are getting old, as they are 34 and 38 respectively. It also doesn't help them that they've sold young talent such as Chukwueze and Nicholas Jackson, and even their young starlet Yeremy Pino is out injured with an ACL tear. Another big team that has been in a bad run of form is last year's Serie A winners Napoli. They were facing off against bottom team Salernitana in a derby, where they managed to scrape a 2-1 victory in the 96th minute thanks to Amir Rahmani. Napoli currently sit in 8th but are only 4 points away from the top 4. But with Victor Osimhen going to AFCON, it will be interesting to see how they will perform in his absence. In the Bundesliga, Leverkusen managed a narrow win with a goal to 1-0 in the 94th minute from Ezequiel Palacios. They're still in first, 4 points clear of Bayern, who have a game in hand, and perhaps Leverkusen will win their first trophy in over 30 years this season. But the most insane thing this week, and possibly this season, happened in the Premier League in a game between Newcastle United and Manchester City. So Newcastle were leading 2-1 at St. James's Park when Kevin De Bruyne gets subbed on 20 minutes before full time. Keep in mind, Kevin De Bruyne got subbed out in the first half of last year's Champions League final and got subbed out in the 23rd minute of the first game of the season versus Burnley due to a relapse on his injury. His only game since then has been against Huddersfield, where he also got subbed on, so he practically hasn't played a whole competitive match since last May. Then he gets subbed on with 20 minutes left, 2-1 down to Newcastle in a must-win game at St. James's Park, and he does this.
Now into the final third. De Bruyne now steps in, hits a shy foot into the corner of the net. Kovacic onto De Bruyne. De Bruyne tries to scoop it in towards Bob. Bob is there, still Bob!
I've come to the conclusion that Kevin De Bruyne is the best midfielder the Premier League has ever seen. Do you understand how insane it is to not have played a whole match of competitive football for 8 months and then get subbed on at St. James's Park and win the game? If you don't think St. James's Park is difficult, just ask PSG. They lost 4-1. What Kevin De Bruyne will keep Sunday very brief, since we've got the biggest game of them all, El Classico, which overshadows everything else, especially since this was in a final. Real Madrid slaughtered Barcelona 4-1 in a game that would see Vinicius Jr. score a first half hat-trick in just 38 minutes. As the second half began, the game seemed to cool off until Ronald Araujo got shown a red card. Tensions were fuming, including Vinicius showing the number 4 towards the Barcelona bench. To me, this just shows that no matter matter what, El Clasico is still the biggest game in football despite neither Messi or Ronaldo playing for Barcelona and Real Madrid anymore. Because you either support one or the other, even as a neutral, and that can't be said for many other derbies. And I think this is a good way to end the video, so thank you guys so much for watching and stay safe.